It's Wednesday, June the 4th. Lake level's still right about 9:15, hadn't changed very much. Water temperature's changed quite a bit. It's dang near up to 80 degrees. It's like 79 something this afternoon. And with that water temperature warming up, there's a lot of things changing. You know, we've been catching a ton of fish on the banks. A lot of smallmouth. It's a Kentucky, it's kind of mixed. But that bite has been getting slower and slower, like we talked about last week, and some of those fish are starting to move out deeper. It seems like there's less and less of the shallow bite right now with that water warming up. But what it's doing, it's kind of opening up another whole new deal. The fish are starting to get out on them main lake and secondary points a little bit better on a Carolina rig and a football jig. And there's even some deep diving crankbait fish being caught. Still a topwater bite, you know. I mean, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen within the next week or two. I'm seeing a lot of shad in that 8 to 10 foot range. I'm not seeing them up there on surface yet schooling, you know, the shad schools where they're getting ready to lay their eggs. But with the water temperature like it is, that should be happening, and I'm hoping that whenever we start seeing a lot more of them shad, hopefully that'll start to trigger the topwater fish. Now, the fish have, you know, had a week or two to rest up after they've spawned. There's still a few up on the bank, guarding fry, but most of them are pretty well done. So, and I think the river bite up in the James River and like up in the Long Creek and Kings, up in that stained water, some of that bite's getting a little bit better on them main lake points and them roll-offs and drops. And what I mean by the roll-offs and the drops up there, it'll be like either a bluffing end, where you got a channel on one side and it flattens out on the other. And out on the main lake river channel, places where the channel kind of swings around and comes up against the flat, what you can do is, you know, set the boat about 20, 25 foot and cast where it's anywhere from 8 to 10, work it off the top of that flat down to the drop. Normally where it drops, you know, if you've got some brush or some bigger rock, that's going to be your key areas to fish. And we're fishing that with either a football jig, Carolina rig, even a big worm, or crankbait. Like I say, it's just kind of starting, but you know, the last few days we've been catching some fish, setting the boat, you know, even up around the Kimberling area. I've been at the dam the last few days, and to me the bite's better down towards Kimberling, up in the White River, and up in the James, up around Ants Creek in that area. But, you know, depending on how deep, how much wind, but I'd either throw a 5/8 ounce or a 3/4 ounce football jig. This is a XXX that I'm throwing a pig sticker, and it's got a Zoom Speed Craw for a trailer. Or I would use like a Strike King Rage Denny Craw for if you want a little bit bulkier trailer. That's what I'm using on this wobble head here. This will work in a lot of the same areas. And you know, the colors that are working good is, you know, green pumpkins, watermelons, watermelon reds. But here's one on a wobble head. This one's on a 1/2 ounce wobble head, a little bit bigger bait. And you can even take and throw a 9 or 10 inch worm on their same rig, or you can Carolina rig a big worm or Texas rig it. And the crankbaits, we've been down there at Big Cedar the last couple days with this big golf tournament deal that's going on. They're also having a fishing tournament, and all the elite fishermen are down in the area. And we take a couple guys out in the morning, and we take a different group out in the afternoon. And I know today, my buddy had, for the first half of the day, he had one about 6.5 pounds. He won the first part of that, the morning tournament. And those fish came to the Kimberling City area on football jig and a deep diving crankbait. And like I say, that bite should be a little bit better the further upriver you go. As far as the crankbait, you know, I'm going to want to throw like a Strike King, either a 5X or a 6X. If I'm setting out there in 25, 30 feet, I want to throw a 6XD. This is a chartreuse sexy shad. A 5XD will also work if you're not fishing quite as deep. You just got to kind of mix it up, find out which depth and which color crankbait, you know, working a little bit better for you. Seems like, you know, some days when the sun's out, they'll like the chartreuse sexy shad a little bit better. And if it's cloudy, they want something a little bit duller hue. But you just got to mix it up and play with it. Now, some of these fish we're catching out of the pole timber. They're on main lake points or secondaries. They got a channel up above them. Now, if you throw in the pole timber, you're going to lose a few baits, but for the most part, the pole timber, you can get a lot of these baits through it without getting hung up. And you might also try, you know, a football jig or a Carolina rig in the same area. Now, on the, you know, the Carolina rig, and most, like on the crankbait, most of the time I throw it on 10-pound line, and I'm using a 7/6 loose cranking rod. But I use the 10-pound line so I can get the bait down as deep as possible. Now, on the football jig and the Carolina rig and the wobble head, I wouldn't use much lighter than 12. I'd probably prefer anything from 14 to 17 pounds. Now, the Carolina rig, there's multiple different baits. This one I was fishing with today down by the dam, it's a Strike King baby rage craw. Looks like a little crawdad. I've been throwing a 6-inch lizard some too, and a watermelon candy. Like I say, this bite's going to do nothing but get better and better. Some of them fish are still real shallow, but the majority of them are starting to move out, and some are in between. But another week or so with this warm weather, and there's going to be more fish out there in that, you know, 15 to 20 foot range where you can set the boat 25 to 30 and catch them. And like I say, the top water, don't give up on it yet, because if it's going to happen, you know, it's got to happen in the next week or two. The water's really clear. The fish are out there suspended. It's just a matter if we can get them to chase a bait, come up for it. But I think a lot of the key for that is if them shad will come up and start spawning, it'll get them topwater fish fired up. So, till next week, good luck, good fishing.